My Aunt Sherry just sent a text wanting to know if I could teach her how to make a simple sawtooth star block. And I said, of course I can, but why just teach Aunt Sherry when I can teach all of you as well? So are you ready? Let's get started. Well, welcome back everybody. That is right. This is So Well. I am your host, Rob Appell, coming to you from my California studio, but really from Stitchin Heaven in Quitman, Texas. And we are so glad to see all of you out there on the other side of the camera. And yes, this is absolutely a personal tutorial for you. Aunt Sherry, I love you. Thank you very much for trusting me to teach you to quilt. But this is such a simple block that I thought I should take the time and share this with everybody. The simple sawtooth star, often done in just two colors, sometimes in a third color in the center here, is a very, very common used quilt block or quilt block unit made in other quilts and in other places. The construction, there are many, many different ways to do this. So what I wanted to do was come up with something that was very quick and easy to teach. And if you stick with me, I'll actually explain the mathematics towards the end of the video. I know sometimes I overdo the explanation in the beginning. So let's dive right into construction for Sherry's simple sawtooth star. She wanted a 4-inch finished in the quilt, 4.5-inch raw. This is a tiny little sawtooth star, folks. And so I chose a construction that would be based off of using rectangles and squares to create flying geese. It can also be done sometimes with half square triangles all throughout. But like I said, let's just do this. I have a free printout, a free pattern that you all may use. Sherry, it's in the description below. Just hit the link and then hit print. Got it? Couldn't resist. Bailey will show you how. Bailey is their cute little dog, everybody. And Richard, I know you're watching along. Okay, so here we go. You are gonna need parts and pieces, and what I have right now is 1.5-inch cut squares of my dark. I need 8 of these. They are 1.5 inches. They're gonna finish out at 1 inch in the block. I have a 2.5-inch finished square. I need 1 of those for the center, and I need 4 more of the little rectangles here. These are 1.5 by 2.5, and I just realized as I was going through here, I haven't cut all of the units yet. I was going to show you how to cut them from strips, but we do need 4 more little blue squares that measure at 1.5. So a lot of times I've done strips because you're going to make a lot of these blocks in your quilt. So this was a 1.5-inch strip by the width of the fabric, and now I'm just going to subcut down 1.5-inch to make for our small little sawtooth star, and I need 4 of these. The smaller the block work you're doing, the more crucial it is that you try to stay somewhat accurate. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to use this little rectangle and these squares to make what are called flying geese units. That's seen here in the pattern. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to start by sewing 1 of these on one side first, but I need you to go ahead and mark all 8 of your dark squares with a diagonal line. I couldn't find my chalk pencil earlier, so I did take some of them and I ironed them over, but I found that in this small piecing, if you iron them to create what would be the same straight line, it seems to distort the fabric a little bit or makes it stand up tall, and I'm not getting the accurate piecing I need. So Sherry, just use a chalk pencil or a marking pencil of any kind. Just don't use a Sharpie, and mark a diagonal on all 8 of those little squares. That diagonal is our sewing line. So now I'm just matching up the squares to the edge of the rectangle. And I'm going to come over here with a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to, excuse me, I know 1/4 inch, I guess it is a 1/4 inch foot, but I'm going to stitch right on that little chalk line, that little drawn line. All the way through the point there, just like that. Now, I need you to do these in the right steps because this will make it easier for the next step. So right now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut before we add the next piece. So I'm going to use a ruler, and I can do a 1/4 inch cut using the ruler to protect my hand. But folks, because it's so small, I don't need that much seam. I've been finding that I actually cut off a bunch more seam allowance, getting a real light seam in there. But after you've cut, now we're going to press. We're going to press to the dark side. I'm just going to push that over. Because what happens as we lay the second square on, and I've got more of these that have already been marked with the chalk. That was my example of what not to do. So now as we're going to do this, we're going to build what becomes that flying geese. So as we line up the back corners here of the dark square on the rectangle, you can now see there's an overlap. That's why we had to cut and press before we could add this next piece. All the way through down to that corner. Same order of operations. So I stitch, I trim, and I press. If you want super accuracy, now you want to come back and make sure that this flying geese unit is going to be a 2.5 by 1.5 inch unit. And then go ahead and simply add the squares to 2 of those units. Those become these outside cornerstones. So while you're still handling these, just drop on squares for 2 of these. Sew them to the outside edge, both sides. At this part, I like to press into the newly added squares because they don't have seams in them. So I'm going to have to press this side over and then come back and get this side. And you can see through a little bit of keen prep work that I've actually created now a flying geese with the cornerstones added, just like the one I did for below. I left the other 2 flying geese as is. I'm rotating them so the darks all point towards the center, and then we just had that 2.5 inch square that goes in the middle. We're going to start by sewing these on first with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but really I want to make sure the needle is going to land right there where my threads cross. So as I get over to the presser foot, I'm going to stitch and do my darndest to land right there. So I've got a really nice crisp point. You can sew the other side on as long as you're paying attention to where it goes, or you can go press right now and then come back. Either way. And as you do more and more of these, you'll find you develop your own rhythm of efficiency. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and press into the blue center again, effectively making it so my seams on the back sides of the parts and pieces now are going to go in opposite directions. That'll really help us sew together while matching up those seams. Again, trying to hit that same point where your threads have crossed for accuracy. And we should have what is about a 4.5 inch sawtooth star now. Pressing to whichever way it will go at this point, really. And you can even see mine's going to look a little wonky as I come off the ironing board. So I can square it back to 4.5 inches. I can trim, I can block, or whatever I need to do. But you can see there's our little points lined up real nice. And this, like I said, makes the 4.5 inch raw, which will finish into a quilt at 4 inches. Pretty dang small, and I promised you all I would include the math at the end of the video, which is where we are at now, because this is just a part of a quilt. You can do anything you want with these parts, especially if you understand how the calculations work. Like I mentioned a moment ago, you may download for free this printable, and it will just walk you through this steps. But now I want you to think about this mathematically. I chose numbers that would help Aunt Sherry, but I also chose numbers that would make this easy to discuss at this point. This square here being a 2.5 by 2.5, and the other units are half that size. Probably already confused you. The 1/2 inches are for seam allowances. So now let's look at the numbers 2 and the number 1. In order to make this all work out together, my center square and my rectangles and my squares all have proportionality. So this is a 2 by 2. This is a 1x2 and this is a 1x1. So if I wanted to double the size of the project, I could make this a 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch square like I did here. Then this is going to make this a 4.5 by 2.5 and 2.5 by 2.5. So as long as you're using even numbers like 2, 4, 8, it will be okay, simple. You can use odd numbers like 6, that's an even number, but 3s built in, but you're just going to have portions of inches in the middle. Because really, as I mentioned earlier, this could have been done as half square triangles with a seam right here. So when you look at this block, it is actually 4x4 small units of calculation. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 units by 4. So there's 16 parts and pieces in here. So when I really was calculating early, I was figuring out where that center would be. And so if you want to come up with something like a 9-inch or a 7-inch finished, well, you can do your calculations and then just use those half-inch add-ons for the seam allowances. I'm hoping that helps. So back, trying to explain it one more time in English. The numbers are proportional and you can double, quadruple the size of this block very easily just by basically using this number 2 and doubling it or quadrupling it as you go, affecting that number 1. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I wanted to give those advanced quilters something to play with this. And the really fun thing about doing these in different sizes is now that these are both 4.5 raws, they would be stitched together to form basically what would be a 4.5 by 8.5. And then those would match right in there like this. Pretty awesome. So you can make several of the simple Sawtooth star blocks and different sizes and make a really fun and attractive quilt because those will rotate around in a lot of neat orientations. And don't forget, you can always mix up by changing the colors in the square here or even changing them in the perimeter to keep more of that fun and scrappy look. So anyways, Aunt Sherry, Uncle Richard, and their beautiful dog Bailey, I hope that all helped you in your quilting world. Everybody else, I'm sure it helped you as well. You know I like these really simple quilting videos, so if you'll let me know in the comments below today, what is another basic quilt block you would like to learn from myself? Because I'm sure we can all benefit from the knowledge as we move forward as quilters together in this awesome community. Make sure you click the like button. Make sure you share it with your friends. I know you're already subscribed, but if you're not, do that again, and we will see you soon. Make sure to stay well, folks. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really helps support our channel. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Hit the little button to be notified every time we go live or do a new video for all of you. And here's one from the past I think you'll really enjoy.